Hey, deserving listeners, it's time to continue watching 90 Day Fiancé. Let's watch the show.
What are your thoughts?
Both of us, I think, had some kind of amount of pain. And look at me.
Okay, good. Natalie often can speak from the heart and be very vulnerable and very constructive. So it's interesting, I guess, when you think about it, that for Natalie, she kind of swings from two different states, or maybe three. In the middle is the walled up state where it's very cold and distant. And then in the very hot state, she's very accusatory and volatile and hostile. And then there's this healthy state where she can take responsibility for her feelings, fully apologize, be very self-aware, be very forgiving. And so I think she's in that state right now. Whereas Mike vacillates between just, he's actually in one state with two kind of variations because they're so close to each other. Both involve a lot of walled up resistance to being vulnerable. Where one, he is in a state of being a little vulnerable and a little spontaneous. And then the other state, which we've seen most of this season, where he is very, very walled up. So it's just kind of interesting to have enough data from the two seasons to be able to see those different states that they're in. So Natalie said, I think we were both really hurt. That's great. Now, she could have done a little bit better by saying, I was really hurt, and this is where I was coming from. A little advice for everyone out there. Start from that place. I don't know what was going on with you last night during the fight, but I'm just going to tell you what was going on with me. And we always want to get down to those fundamental feelings of either hurt and pain or fear and anxiety. So we're either hurt or we are afraid. And according to some emotional models and some attachment emotional models, and this is how I see the world and humans, is that those are our fundamental feelings. And then feelings come from there: jealousy, anger, hostility, all these other kind of disgust, these things. But it starts with fear or hurt. And if you can get down to there, if you can really figure that out and take care of yourself and validate to at least to yourself and say like, yeah, I think I was hurt yesterday. That's why I was so angry and hostile with my partner. And you know what? It makes sense that I was hurt because of what he or she said, what they said to me. That hurt my feelings, or the way I saw it, or because of my traumas. It really, really hurt my feelings. Oh, now I know the other person didn't mean to do that to me, but that's the result of what happened. Was I was very, very hurt. I didn't know it at the time, though. I didn't really recognize I was hurt at the time. All I could feel in my mind was anger and hostility, or disgust, or wanting to push the other person away. And I had all these sentences going through my mind of like, that person's wrong, I'm right, I need to tell them they're wrong, and here are the 10 bullet points of how wrong they are. That's all I could really focus on. But looking back, I know that deep down it all started with me being hurt by something that happened. And so Natalie is starting from that kind of. Let's see if she can continue that trend.
So I just want you to know that I understand it was torture for you also. Me reminding you of my trust issues. And I'm sorry for that.
Okay, great. Now, the big question here, does Mike even want to be in this relationship? If he doesn't, then there's really no point in trying to work this out from his point of view. Now, there's no reason to not work it out. I mean, even if you don't want to be with her, you'd be like, okay, fine, let's forgive each other on this issue. I still don't want to be with her. It's a possibility that's what's going on in the back of his mind. But if there's even a shred of hope or a shred of intention in his mind about having this work out, then he has to reciprocate here. And he, at the very least, has to say, you know what, I accept your apology. Thanks for apologizing. Apologizing is one of the best things we can do in relationships. If you aren't apologizing to your spouse, I don't know, at least once a month, if not every week, there's probably something wrong with your relationship. You're either too cold and you're not fighting enough so that you need to apologize enough, or you're stuck in that angry, hostile place and you're not recognizing that you're hurt, and then you're not recognizing the other person's hurt. You're not communicating your hurt or fears to each other. You're not intuiting the way you hurt or make the other person afraid. And so apologies are very, very important. When I have couples on my couch, it's very frequent that they'll sit down, they'll start talking about a conflict. And one of the questions that I will frequently ask is, it sounds like there's an apology there. Or I might ask the person who was hurt, I'd say, would you like an apology for this? Or the person who did the wrongdoing, I might say, would you like to apologize? I like to formalize it in that way. And then if they apologize well enough, I'll let it go. But a lot of times they need a little help with their apology. And as they do it, then I want a closed loop, and I will often go to the other person. I'll say, do you accept their apology? Because a lot of people, they're too afraid to extend themselves in the vulnerability and even accept someone else's apology. And through that process of fully apologizing and fully forgiving, then we can put it behind us. And if you can do that on your own over and over and over again, then you'll be fine. It's not a matter of not making mistakes, because you're going to make mistakes. You're going to screw up. You're going to hurt your partner's feelings. You're going to say the wrong thing. You're going to ignore them. You're going to be stressed out. You're going to be triggered from something earlier and push someone away. It's going to happen. You got to apologize for it. You got to repair it. And you've got to receive that apology and appreciate it. Let's see if Mike can do that.
I realize that I cannot go with my thoughts to the past. The past is the past.
Past is the past. I agree on that.
I'm moving on from this. And I will not remind you anymore. I promise.
I'm glad to hear you say that. I appreciate it.
Okay, so kind of a thumb up on that. I'm glad to hear you say that. I appreciate it. It's good. It's going in the right direction. Now, if I were there, or if Doug, I think that was his name, the couples therapist, I'm guessing he would really drill in on Mike right now and say, like, okay, what's going on? Tell me more. Tell me more, because this is a good opportunity for Mike to say, like, well, I don't know. I'm still kind of worried that it's going to happen again, because we've been here before where she's apologized and then something else happens. Okay, let's talk more about that. Also, a big question, like I've been saying, does Mike even want to be with her? And is he thinking, why put effort into this relationship? It's almost over. She's almost going to go back home. I don't have to deal with this anymore. There seem to be indications about that, but, I wouldn't be surprised if deep down he really does want this to work out. I wouldn't be surprised about that. The other day, I was talking to my wife, maybe just earlier today, me and my wife watches the show when I'm doing these videos, she's in the other room watching. And so we'll talk about it on our walks with the dog. And I thought, we were talking about Mike and Natalie, and I was like, I wonder if they'll be on a third season. And she was like, really? A third season? It seems like it's so over already. And I was like, well, I don't know. I could see them having this kind of be a holding pattern for this season. She goes back home. They work on things a little bit more. And maybe this is the turning point where they're able to start to rebuild, but it's going to take them a while to rebuild to the point where they can become re-engaged. And then they'll be on another season and they'll be back here. And, I could see that happen. I could see this season maybe as an adjustment period. It's not uncommon for couples to do that, for there to be all the good times when you're dating, and then you move in together and you start dealing with the realities of living with each other all the time. And a lot of conflicts can come up, and you might have big adjustments you have to go through, and a lot of questioning of like, wait, you get through that time and you make those adjustments towards each other, and then things start to be more easy as they move forward. I could see that happening, but I don't know. Let me know in the comments. What do you think? Are you hoping for a third season of Mike and Natalie? I really don't know. Do people like this couple? I mean, I kind of do. I'm pulling for both of them. I don't know if it's the Squim thing, being close to Seattle. I don't know if it's the fact I've been with this couple for two seasons. I don't know if it's that Natalie has a lot of good personality traits. She really cares. She has a lot of passion, and she's willing to take responsibility for her feelings. I don't know. The fact that they went to couples therapy. What is it about this couple that I'm pulling for so much? But are you pulling for them? Let me know in the comments.
I am surprised to hear her apologize. It's really great.
Okay, tell her, hug her, hold her hand. But again, if you have a lot of trauma around being vulnerable and being rejected or slapped back or something, to extend yourself in that way neurologically is very difficult for some people. In the same way that if you were traumatized by falling off a roof, and as you get close to the edge of a cliff, your whole body starts to, and it's almost impossible for you to take steps further towards the edge of that cliff. Other people can walk right up to it. And you, because of your traumas of falling off of a roof, or you saw someone fall off a roof or something, you're very scared. Your body gets scared. It's not just your mind. It's not just a thought like, I might fall off the cliff. Your body is resisting. Another example is maybe some of you have phobias around needles and vaccines, or needles going into your vein. And when you even think about it, your hands start to sweat. Or, there's things where our mind might be afraid, but our body is much more in control of what we do. And so when you're growing up and you're being vulnerable and you're being rejected or abused or something, you learn in your body, in your neurological reality, that I'm not going to be vulnerable, because to be vulnerable is akin to walking up to that cliff. And as I feel the urge to be vulnerable, or someone's asking me to be vulnerable, I actually feel that intense fear and resistance of, no, that's not going to happen. And so to accept someone's apology and to show appreciation can be very vulnerable. It seems strange because, Natalie's the one being vulnerable, and all you have to do is just accept it. But to accept it is to admit that you care, is to admit that you are vulnerable, is to admit that you need someone to apologize to you. And that can be too much for some people to tolerate given their traumas. It's something that in therapy we can definitely correct for. It's pretty easy. It takes time, but it's a tall order to ask someone to just suddenly do. And my hypothesis about Mike is that he does have those traumas. I don't know. It's just a guess. I'd have to ask him. But I'm guessing that's why he's not doing that. But wouldn't that be great if he were to say to Natalie, thank you so much for saying that. I really appreciate it. This whole time I've been wanting you to apologize for that. And it just makes me feel so good that you can forgive me for that. And let me tell you that I want to apologize too. This is another tip. If your spouse ever apologizes for something, accept it and reward it with a lot of love and hugs and thank you for apologizing. And then apologize too, because in all likelihood, you have something to apologize as well. And sometimes that is somewhat of an ask that people have. I'm going to apologize first. I'll be the bigger person, but he better apologize back after I apologize, because I know I wasn't the only one. And that's how it works, is one person apologizes, you do the whole process, you put that aside, the other person apologizes, you do the whole thing, and then you're moving on. So Mike could say, you know what, as I've been saying earlier, I'm really sorry that I spent the night at her house. I should have told you. I can see why you'd be jealous. I want to reassure you nothing happened, but I get your feelings, and I'll try to think about that and moving forward. And I'm sorry that I did that. Now, you don't have to say, I'm to blame for all of our conflict. You could in your mind think, and I'm pretty sure I'm only 10% to blame for that entire conflict. But that doesn't mean you don't apologize, because if to think in those mindsets of like, who needs to apologize more, in most situations can be a destructive mindset to have.
Let's say like we start from clean page, you and I just have my trust at the beginning, because you haven't done anything. We have a lot of goals, a lot to concentrate on.
So again, Mike is just saying almost nothing, and Natalie is doing all the work. And I imagine for Natalie, she's like, okay, this is going well, but I'm still not getting anything, and I'm still doing all this work. Now, a thing Natalie could do is say, Mike, what do you want? Just a question. What do you want to do? Do you want to get married? Do you want to take your time? Are you into me? Do you like this? I'm totally open, just some questions, and then Mike could ask some questions, maybe something like that.
So we should move forward.
Okay, body language on that one. So she's saying, I want to move forward, which I think she is communicating not so subtly to him. I want to get the ring back. I want to get engaged. I want to get married. I think that's kind of what she's saying. And then she reaches out, which is great. And then there's that pause. And then a very lackluster reaching over. it seems to indicate that he has all 10 toes out of the door. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised. Let's rewatch that.
My visa is expiring in a few weeks, and we still have a lot to figure out, but I'm hoping for the best.
Now, it's possible that he was rubbing his eye and he didn't see it, but she did put her hand on his arm, so he would have felt it. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I'm just reading into it. Let me know what you think in the comments on that one, too. Did it seem like an indication that he is not into this relationship and hasn't been for a while? Or is he just having a hard time reaching out or something along those lines? I don't know. Let's watch.
How do you feel?
I feel pretty good right now.
Good.
Enjoying this for what it is right now.
So that was great. She's like, well, how do you feel? And he's like, I'm feeling pretty good right now. She could have asked more questions. If I were in that situation, be like, okay, Mike, you feel pretty good. Tell us more. When you think back on the past conflict, what's going on for you? What are your feelings for Natalie? What would you like Natalie to know? Asking more questions. And this is actually a tip for people out there. If you're dealing with someone that is like Mike, don't just ask one question. And for you therapists out there as well, I know a lot of you clinicians are out there. This is something I talk with my trainees a lot. We'll talk about different strategies of helping clients. And the trainee will go to the session and they'll do the thing and they'll come back to me and they'll be like, it didn't work. And I'll be like, okay, let's watch the video. And they'll just ask one question. Like if you were to talk to Mike as a therapist, you might be like, tell me how are you feeling? And Mike would say, oh, I'm feeling pretty good. Just really bland answer. And then the therapist freezes and says, well, now what do we do? I asked him how he felt and he gave me this really lackluster answer. What do I do now? Well, things never work the first time you try it. You always have to keep going. That's why sessions are an hour long, because there's always follow-up questions and there is a lot of work that needs to be done beyond just the first foray into a subject. And so if you're a therapist, if you're trying to get information from someone that you love, you're trying to reach out, you're trying to make them feel comfortable, you have to have a lot of different ways of coming at people. Like Natalie could say, hey, how are you feeling? He's like, oh, I'm feeling pretty good. Well, okay, but how do you feel about what happened? Are you angry at me at all? I'm open to that. No, I'm not angry. Well, how are you feeling about our relationship? I think it's fine. Well, can you tell me more about that? Because I'm curious. Like, where do you think we stand? Just really continuing to ask, because through those questions, what you're doing is you're proving to the people like Mike that you care enough to really pursue it. That people like Mike are like hoping that you'll ask a lot of questions, and usually, not always, but the question, because the first question, they're like, oh, okay, maybe you care. And so they'll give a little bit of information. You come at it more angles and you're not angry, you're not hostile or pressuring them. And it's like, oh, okay, that person does really care about my feelings. They're not just asking for me to give a pat answer. And then they might open up some more. Anyway, let's continue watching.
No, you almost ripped my neck off. Natalie tells me she's going to leave the past in the past, and I have hopes for it, but I hope Natalie means what she says at the end of the day.
Right. That's what I was thinking, is he is feeling, okay, fine, she apologized, but we've been here before and I don't trust it. That was what I was thinking. That's why he's subdued. That's why he's not celebrating in this moment. He believes, yeah, this is BS. We've been here before, and I don't think this is going to last. In a couple of days, she's going to start yelling at me about something. And so I'm not going to be vulnerable. I'm not going to let my guard down. The guard is still up because I know something bad is going to happen. Now, one could argue that as he keeps that wall up, that will cause her to be hurt, and that will cause her to get hostile, and that will cause him to put his walls up, and the cycle continues. Hey, if you didn't know already, we have an Instagram, which, every YouTuber has to have an Instagram, right? And I post a lot of pictures of me and my wife and the dog and the cat and the other dog and all those kinds of things. So join our Instagram, join our official Facebook page, join the Facebook fan page, which is run by fans. And also join the Reddit. If you are into Reddit, we just started that subreddit, so subreddit Psychology in Seattle. We're trying to get that going. I love Reddit, and so I've been like, we should get on Reddit. And so our social media ambassador, Colin, has taken up that job. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.